After releasing the review on Mega Man X on iOS, I was pointed towards other official Mega Man releases that are considered the worst in the series. Mega Man Crossover, Mega Man X7, and the various Mega Man DOS releases. Since I'm supposed to be in a little classic Mega Man marathon, let's get into those DOS titles. I'll get to the X games another time because Mega Man 1 and 3 on DOS are some interesting games. This is also where I'm going to mention that the classic Mega Man marathon will include those games and the portable games. This will be interesting. Back to the DOS games, are they as bad as people are making them out to be, or is it all hyperbolic? Spoilers? Yes. Why? Let's talk about that, but before we do, let's get to our sponsor, Skillshare. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. With thousands of classes available, there's a little something for everyone as there may be multiple courses on similar topics. I've been learning to improve how I approach segments in my videos to make them more interesting to the viewer. This is where I chose Dylan Reeves' Fellows, the script for YouTube's success. While, yes, there is a difference in content as his class uses vlogs as an example, there's enough to work with to bring to my scripted reviews and editorials. Hopefully with the pointers provided, I can make some more engaging content. The other benefits of Skillshare would have to be the ad-free viewing so you can start a class and not have to worry about being forced to stop for a moment. Not only that, but being able to stop and continue at any time that you please really helps as well. If you're interested in discovering a new skill or refining a current skill, you can become a member with the link provided below this video. In fact, the first 1,000 people to use the link will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Give it a shot, and a huge thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Mega Man DOS was developed by one person, that being Stefan Rosner. From all I can find online, his company was purchased by Capcom USA to become an internal developmental team. Those plans weren't fully realized, and while he was working his day job managing other teams, he was developing his own Mega Man game on the side. Before his departure from Capcom, his fan project was given the green light as an official title to release on PC. It's quite the interesting story for a game. There's more to this, but that's the summary. If you want something more like a documentary, check out the Gaming Historian's video on these games. It even includes an interview with Rosner himself. Mega Man on DOS is similar to the originals, with the players going from level to level with the blue bomber, blasting enemies, and taking on robot masters to eventually take on Dr. Wily. Oh, don't forget the E. That's where the similarities end. Believe it or not, but the game's a bit forward-thinking with its intro level. Yeah, before the X series, before Mega Man 7, Mega Man DOS drops the player into the action right away. That's the only thing neat about this because it's a short path that leads to a door, and it's guarded by this robot dog. Don't bother trying to destroy it as it will respawn as soon as the screen moves even a little bit. From there, we are sent to a level select that reminds me of the Mega Man 7 level select. Unlike that one, this is all you get. Mega Man isn't the worst to control. His jump is there, and shooting is about what you'd expect, with the game limiting the player to 3 shots on screen at once. In theory, it works really well, but the aspect ratio of the game does mean it takes a bit longer for them to go off screen. This is going to happen often as enemies are really short, so it takes a bit longer to destroy them. The platforming is something that needed some time to get used to, as the game is going to expect the player to go for long jumps. The one thing that started to wear on me is the knockback. Sure, knockback is a standard thing in classic Mega Man, but it feels like I'm going further back than I need to be. And because of that, it feels like it takes longer to start shooting again. Now, a lot of that can be forgiven if it wasn't for the game's performance. Need I say more? I actually should get this out of the way. The game looks really weird. Mega Man has this unusual appearance, and it more resembles a balloon rather than the Blue Bomber himself. Sprites are pretty faithful to the NES games, which is pretty neat. It's just not as fun to look at because of the lower frame rate of the animations. In fact, it almost makes the game look like it's running even slower than it actually is. You know what, credit where it's deserved? You're rarely looking at a blank background in these levels, and I can really appreciate that. But they also mess with my eyes. I think the tiny patterns were not the right choice, and it makes looking at the game a challenge after some time. One more thing to note is how the game looks like it's constantly underground. The level assets are all over the place. In fact, so all over the place they come from other games, like Duke Nukem. The Robot Masters and Dr. Wily's robots look ridiculous. It's not as if they ruined it and now I'm mad at how they were designed. It's more, I'm struggling to take them serious because of how goofy they look. More credit where it's due, the returning enemies and Dr. Wily look like they've made the platform switch unscathed. Well, Dr. Wily looks like he's trying to sleep in class, but that's besides the point. As for the music... moving on. Level design-wise, it's nothing special. For the most part, you're going through cramped hallways, sometimes with enemies that are too small to hit with the Buster. I could hit them with a sub-weapon, but that only really works if you have Voltman's ability. So any level that you play before that, you don't get that option. Thankfully, the rats stand up sometimes. But still, this sucks. 2 levels are going to have gimmicks that pull Mega Man in different directions. The Water and Sonic Man's level will slowly drag you backwards, and Voltman's machines will pull you towards the middle. The latter is a more annoying obstacle with tiny wasp-like enemies spawning nearby. Yoku blocks make an appearance, but the price for falling is significantly less harsh than, say, the NES games. I don't really have an issue with them. I hate to admit it, but I think Dynaman has the best level. It's not some hidden gem or anything, but it did give me a few minutes of competent level design, which I appreciate. Really, my biggest gripe was how repetitive the levels felt to play through and the cramped areas. Sure, there are ways to deal with them, but that doesn't mean the issues don't exist. But how about the bosses? Well, they are a joke. They don't have invincibility frames, so you can really let them have it. Voltman is a small exception because his attack creates a barrier, but this just means you have to wait a little bit to get your shot in. Dr. Wily's a slightly harder one, but only because the fight has 2 phases. Aside from that, the levels are harder than the bosses themselves. With Dr. Wily defeated, you get this one screen of him surrendering to Mega Man. Oh, forgot to eat. So that was Mega Man on DOS. Was it terrible? Yes, it was, but I can't help but be impressed with some of the things that were done on someone's free time. It's not really worth playing, but I would recommend checking out the Gaming Historian's video that I mentioned earlier, but also some speedruns of the game. That stuff is wild. Apparently it's on the Strider NES level of easy. No, I will not be speedrunning this game. I played it once, and I think that's good for a lifetime. Mega Man 3. Oh, wait. Mega Man 3. Oh, damn, still too fast. Hang on. Mega Man 3. That's better. Mega Man 3 The Robots Are Revolting was developed as a completely different game, but the call was made to change it into a Mega Man title, to appeal to a larger audience. The decision to not go with Mega Man 2 as the title was because Bitman looked an awful lot like Sparkman, the one who was on the cover of Mega Man 3. Meaning Capcom could just reuse the box art for Mega Man 3 for this release. Just at a glance, the graphics have been significantly improved on. The variety of locations was awesome to see. Underwater caverns, sewers, ships, it's awesome. It's great to see more going on with the locations of the game rather than just underground. Actually, that does happen, but it's not as much. Backgrounds are much more pleasing to the eye with a few exceptions, but it won't completely strain my eyes to look at the game with full color. Some projectiles are a bit too small, and it actually did get in the way of me enjoying this game, for a reason I'll get into later. Some of the new enemy designs are a bit out of place, but with the development being what it is, I have no interest in being harsh about that. Though I will say the hazmat suit enemy was really cool. It's also clear that a lot was lifted from other games. The enemy designs were ripped from Mega Man 2 and 3 with Not Airman, Discount Magnet Man, Totally Not Crash Man, and the reason it was called Mega Man 3? The homework copied from your friend version of Sparkman. I don't have much else to say except for I'm glad it's a lot easier to look at. Audio-wise, the soundtrack got quite the remaster. You can totally hear the lie that I'm telling you. Moving on. The gameplay has seen a few differences, but it's mostly the same. Rather than 3 Robot Masters, you have 6, and Dr. Wily finally has a castle. Mega Man can no longer shoot through walls, which kinda sucks, but it is something we won't see until Mega Man X5. Leave it to the DOS game to once again bring in something before the main releases. Speaking of that, Mega Man can now swim. Rather than running in the last game, he has a DKC-style swim that makes it easier for him to go through hazards and enemies. But he's still a big character. That means taking a hit is inevitable. Which also leads into the knockback because it is even worse in this game. Getting knocked back in water will push you back and force you to rise a bit, which can lead into possibly taking more damage in certain spots. Not only that, but there are a lot more tiny platforms that have some laser shooting enemy, making those sections a chore to go through. And to top it all off, getting hit on some platforms will make Mega Man fall through. Can I ask why? What's the justification for this? Do you just hate the player? Well, anyways, the levels themselves have seen an increase in variety, direction, and most importantly, size. They are massive, and with the few obstacles presented to the player, they start to drag. Even worse is when the level doesn't really make a good distinction between what's the main path and what's a detour. Then figure out you've gone in a circle because screw it, why the hell not? There were some okay moments, but I really hated how every level just ballooned in size. The Dr. Wily castle being the worst since it's a gauntlet, do some stuff from a level, fight a robot master, rinse and repeat until you get to Dr. Wily. Possibly game over a couple times. At least most of the robot masters are easy again. Bitman has a bit of invincibility until he starts charging at you, and Dr. Wily's first robot forces you to use the whole room. Aside from that, the rest are pretty easy. Weakness or not, they all fell swiftly. Even Dr. Wily's 2-phase fight was super easy because I looked up the weaknesses because I was done playing this thing, and I wanted to be done with it. Can you really blame me? With an end screen that looks very familiar, that's Mega Man 3 on DOS. I really hated going through this one because there were some cool ideas, but the game just sucked. Levels were massive and the designs of the levels became way too complex, and it led to taking the wrong path or going in a circle. Taking damage was inevitable and sometimes led to harsh punishments. It just wasn't fun to go through. But that's Mega Man 3 DOS in a nutshell. Not worth it. So I'm of two minds with these games. On one hand, it's two crappy PC games that have very few redeeming qualities except for the ideas that would be introduced in later main series installments. It doesn't hurt the reputation of the main series, but it also doesn't help players on other platforms either. If anything, they get screwed, and the only thing close to decent releases would be the Mega Man X games that would be out 3 years later. On the other hand, it was developed by one person. It was also interesting to see ideas that would show up in later games appear here first, albeit with a lot less polish. I can also respect that this was done without much provided from Capcom except for the green light. What leads me to feel how I do about this game is the fact that this was sold for profit. With that said, these games are the worst in the series. And that'll just about do it. Hey everyone, thank you for watching today's video. I can finally say I don't have to play these games anymore, which is a huge relief. Anyways, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And at this time, I want to give a huge shout out to the supporters through YouTube's channel membership and Patreon. The Chaos tier members have their names scrolling on screen. The Super tier members get a verbal shout out, and they are Dork in a Hat, Martin YT Plays, and Sir Nitro the Bastard. Thank you all for your extra support, it is greatly appreciated, you are all awesome. If you want to support the videos, you can do so with the join button below this video, or with the Patreon link in the description, patreon.com/GottaBeFrank. In the description, you can also find my social media links, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, whatever I have going on. That'll do it for today's video. Again, thank you all so much for watching, I hope you all have a wonderful and safe day, and until next time, take care. I'm gonna go play something good now.